Welcome to r/entitled people. In today's stories, we have one story. It's a big one. It's the story of entitled Mum and Mike. Ian won't let her son have fun on holiday, so I shouldn't either. What is up, guys? I do hope you're well. If you enjoy Reddit stories, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe button, and maybe even that notification bell. And with that being said, let's get into today's story. The story is from The Barker 26. Ian won't let her son have fun on holiday, so I shouldn't either. End in a fight. Note, I'm from the UK, so if any ages/terminology for anything seem off to you, that's why. Full backstory, from ages 4 to 10, I had a group of friends who all lived on my cul-de-sac. All our parents were friends and we were very close. Big sleepovers together, Boy Scouts, etc. However, when I turned 11 and went off to high school, I was forced to make new friends, seeing as none of the people from my street went to the same one as me. Needless to say, we drifted apart. The problem with this was just before starting high school. At the height of our friendship, my mother had planned a holiday with EM, entitled Mum, and a son who we'll call Mike, for 14 months in advance. It was a non-refundable trip, and seeing as both of our mothers were single parents, it wasn't like they had cash to burn. So, instead of wasting the holiday due to a little awkwardness, we decided to go ahead with the 2 weeks in Gran Canaria and use that time to revitalise our friendships. The changes that occur from 11 to 13 are obviously drastic. Still, I was optimistic about the whole thing. I kinda missed Mike and was curious to see what he was like. With all that in mind, here we go. Mike and EM stayed over at our house the night before the holiday, and Mike and I got reacquainted very quickly. One thing I noticed was how he hadn't changed at all. Everyone knew I was sliding into the noughties, emo/mosher/goth culture, but Mike still looked like his mum dressed him, and he didn't seem too interested about talking about music either. I can't quite describe it properly, but he didn't seem like a teenager. He seemed like the 11-year-old boy I last spoke with, but I didn't think too much of it. You don't really need many things in common with someone when you're going to a resort with a water park across the road, right? So, we're at the airport, and after going through security etc, my mother lets me off my metaphorical leash and tells me to go eat wherever I want, / gives me time to meet back with her at the cafe. I ask Mike if he's going to come with me to a burger place, and he looks at EM, who shakes her head from side to side. She doesn't say anything, but there's an awkward few seconds where I look at her and my mum just kind of shrugs. Me to EM, it's only around the corner, we can bring the food back here. EM says, what if something happens? I think it's best if Mike stays with me. My mum goes to say something to EM, but EM quickly shuts her down with a firm no. Anyway, I go and get myself a meal with the loose change my mum gave me, and since I felt kinda weird about everything, I bought Mike a large meal with my own money. I go back to everyone and hand the meal over to Mike, and once again, he looks for his mum who sighs. EM says, what's this? Which I say, a cheeseburger meal. Side note, both Mike and I were chubby kids, but since we last saw each other, I'd lost 3 stone, where he was around the same weight. EM to Mike, absolutely not. Throw it away. I don't want that stuff anywhere near you. There's another long pause, and suddenly I feel guilty for doing what I assumed was a nice thing. I was also a little pissed that I'd spent money on that meal, but my mum is a vegetarian and couldn't eat 2 meals, so whatever. I proceed to sit next to my mum, and she reassures me that I didn't do anything wrong. There was some notable tension in the air, and we continue with our trip. Just before we get on the plane, Mike mentions something about wanting the window seat to EM, so EM suddenly grabs me at the gate by my wrist and tells me to let Mike on first, so there are no arguments over it. Again, this pissed me off, as I'd have happily let him have it if he asked. I let my mum know that Ian was starting to annoy me as when we got on the plane, but my mum said that Ian was probably stressed from the travelling and thought it'd be fine once we got there. The next thing I know, we was in the air, and after 5 minutes of staring at his phone, not out of the window, Mike falls asleep. My mum and EM are behind us. EM is reading a book with her headphones in, ignoring my mum. Being the extrovert that my mum is, and easily bored, it didn't take long for her to start chatting with a couple of people who were in the next aisle. They also happened to be staying at the same resort, and had 4 kids of their own who were all early mid-teens. Those kids were in the seat next to Mike and I, so naturally, I strike up a conversation with them, and we all became fast friends. Several times during the bonding experience, EM would pull her headphones out and ask my mum to keep it down because she couldn't focus on her book, or tap me on the shoulder and make a shh gesture through the gaps in the seats because she didn't want me waking up Mike in the middle of the day. I was still a little pissed at her, so I pretty much ignored this. Before we land, my mum makes plans to meet her new friends at the resort bar later that night, and I make plans to meet their kids at the same time. Of course, I'll be bringing Mike along too. The flight from the UK to Gran Canaria is only around 4 hours, and we're arriving at midday, so jet lag wasn't going to be an issue. If anything, my mum and I were pretty buzzed. EM, on the other hand, was not. The room we was in was a twin family room, 2 double beds and a pull-out sofa, as it was cheaper than getting 2 double rooms, and let us bump our trip from 10 days to 14. I guess we assumed that EM and Mike wouldn't want to spend the first night at the resort cramped in the room, but the moment my mum told EM that we made plans to go out, she got angry. Also, she insisted Mike sleep in her bed, rather than Mike and I share a sofa bed and our mums got a double bed each. Not a huge deal, just thought it was odd. EM said, "What time will you be coming back? I don't want to be woken up after having flown all day." Again, 4 hours on a full night's rest. My mum said, "Well, why don't you come with us? I thought you'd want to check the place out." EM, as if my mum was an idiot. "Because I'm tired. Honestly, it'll hit you the moment you go out tonight, so you might as well just stay in and get a good night's rest." My mum said, "I don't want to be stuck in a room all night. Come on, let's go and have a drink and see what's on." No, this is my holiday, and I'm doing things at my pace. This holiday was split 50-50. My mum and I decided to go anyway, and when the time came to leave the room, I noticed Mike was sat on the edge of his mum's bed sulking. He obviously wanted to come with us rather than stay in the room, as there was arcade machines, games, music, and a show going on right outside. Me to Mike, "Why don't you come with us?" Once again, Mike looks to his mum, who does a trademark sigh. EM to me, "He's tired." I say to Mike, "Do you want to come, or do you want to go to sleep?" EM shoots up, seemingly offended. "Don't ignore me, I told you he's tired." At this point, my teenage angst was boiling over. I'd spoken back to people for far less, and had only bitten my tongue when she grabbed me by my wrist because I didn't want the holiday to be awkward. Thankfully, my mum could see that I was about to go off and stepped in. My mum says to EM, "I'll watch Mike, don't worry, and we'll be back by 11. EM pauses for a moment, then says, 10:30. So, we go out and have a great time. Mike was a tad awkward around the other teens, but I made sure to keep him included in everything. I even shared some money with him and told him to pay for a round of games on some of the machines to break the ice with the other kids. We got in at midnight, but EM was sound asleep and she didn't have anything to say when she woke up, until breakfast. At the buffet, after loading up 2 platesfuls of bacon and then being force-fed a bowl of grapes to be healthy by EM, Mike let slip that we 1. Went to the arcade with the other kids, 2. Got back to the room at midnight, 3. The oldest of the teens, who was 16 I think, had 1 beer over the course of the night. He does this rather innocently in a conversation with me, excitedly recounted the events of our mum's chat, but EM's mouth dropped the second she overhears. She flips out. She tells my mum she endangered my son by letting him wander off alone in a group of 6, in a resort with security and adult supervision inside the little arcade that was basically attached to the main lobby. And she makes it clear he isn't to leave her side for the rest of the trip if she doesn't go. He can't. End of story. After another tense moment, both my mum and I apologised. My mum did try to see it from her perspective, and they did seem to reconcile by dinner. Then, as we're all lounging by the pool before the sun sets, the siblings come up to Mike and I and invite us to go back to the arcade with them. I immediately say yes, but Ian makes it clear that she isn't moving, which means Mike can't go. At this point, I'm done with EM, but I take a moment to look at Mike, who is obviously upset. I tell the other kids that I'll catch them later that night in the arcade. EM seemed to have opinions about this too, saying something like, "Playing games that much isn't good for you," but I ignored her. I then invite Mike to the pool with me, seeing as there isn't anything else to do, and EM has a problem with this too because it's too late and we'll be eating soon. Yes, she controlled when all 4 of us ate. If my mother or I tried to sneak off for a snack, she complained that would ruin our appetite for dinner. We had to have as a collective every night. I spent the rest of the day bored out of my mind with Mike, who, to be honest, wasn't much fun. Nighttime comes around again, and EM comes out this time, but she sits at the bar and she won't let Mike leave her side, meaning he has to sit next to her and watch her get drunk on wine, but even that has its drama. We've gone to an all-inclusive again for money reasons, and they usually allow you to drink alcohol for free, so long as it's house. If you want anything branded or a cocktail, you pay. EM didn't seem to like this and continued to complain that house wine tasted of piss quite loudly, especially when the barman was refilling her glass. After listening to her ramble for 20 minutes, I was done. I wanted to go and have some fun with the other teens regardless if Mike could come or not. So after I speak with my mum, she insists I not feel guilty about leaving Mike, as it was on EM. She tells me it's my holiday too, and that I should do what I want to have a good time. So that's what I do. For the next 5 or 6 days, I spent pretty much every second with the other kids, but I always invited Mike. I asked him and his mother every day if he wanted/could come with me, and she said no every time. I'd even asked several times if I kept running into them, but then Ian would just get annoyed at me for bothering her. I just want to make it clear that Mike was more than welcome to hang out with us. This all came to a head by the time Saturday rolled around. There was some deal with the resort to get a free pass at the water park across the street if you booked a certain package, which we had. My mum and I asked EM every day which day she wanted to go to the water park, as we wanted to spend the entire day there and get our money's worth, but she never seemed interested. So, when the other family with 14 said they were going that Saturday, I asked if I could go with them instead. EM took issue with this. EM to me, before my mother has replied, "No, you should come with us. We're on holiday together, you know." I say, "Well, do you want to go today?" "No, not today. I don't want to go today." Okay, well I do want to go today. You should wait until Mike can go, otherwise what's the point in coming together? Then let him come with us. I said no, a little patience wouldn't kill you. Me sarcastically, this is my holiday and I'm going to do things at my pace. Tensions are obviously rising again, so Mum says that I can go today, that she'll give me her pass when Mike/EM go, so Mike can still have a friend to go with. I pull Mike aside before I head off with the other family and ask him to convince EM to let him come, and the other kids' parents are even offered to speak with her, saying they keep an eye on Mike, but nothing worked. She kept saying no and was very rude to the other parents. I don't recall the conversation very well, but it was something along the lines of, "For I know you're a family of serial killers, so please refrain from talking to me or my child." The family weren't impressed. So I go, I have a fantastic time, and I get back to the room around 7 PM, shortly after the park closed. Once finished getting changed, Mike and EM enter. EM to me, "Did you have a good time with your little friends?" "Yes." "Really? Because I thought I saw you earlier on your own by the pool. Thought they might have ditched you." Me, baffled. "No, I was at the park all day. Did you have a good time reading your book?" EM just grunts at me and makes her way to bed. Me to Mike, "I wish you'd been there. Kieran," one of the other teens, "did a backflip off the diving board. It was cool." EM under her breath mocking me, "It was cool." By this point, I was super irritated with her. This woman in her late 30s had been treating her teenage son like a baby the entire holiday. She complained that the all-inclusive food/drinks were crap whenever we had meals together, making it impossible to enjoy whatever time I spent within her company, and now she's making fun of me. I had enough. I said to EM, "Is there a problem?" EM mumbled something. "Because if there's a problem, I think you should say it so we can get on with our holiday." Before she even turns around, EM launches into a tirade of how I'm spoiled, a selfish brat that has abandoned her son and ruined his holiday. In her mind, his sulking and being bored is down to me not sulking and being bored with him. She tells me I've been dragged up and not brought up, and that my mother should have done a better job. When I try to reason with her, which, to be honest, only lasted 5 seconds because I was getting very angry, and ask what's the harm in Mike and spending some time with people our own age, she goes off about drugs and alcohol, abduction and foreign rapists and all sorts. Like, I get you want your 13-year-old to stay safe, but everywhere we went was heavily secured. Not to mention these Canary Island resorts are ridiculously British. Most people that work/visit there are from the UK, so I had no idea where this foreign fear came from. And if she truly thought the place was a danger, why book it to begin with? Anyway, being 13, I quickly devolve into cursing at her, and I don't hold back at all. I call her a bitch and a cunt, and tell her to fuck right off, and tell her to shove that bedside lamp right up her vag. I just get plain nasty with her. I'm not proud of it, and she used my language/attitude as "this proves I'm right" argument. But I was beyond caring. By the way, this all takes place in about 5 minutes, and just as we really start to go at it, and after she's insulted my mother's parenting numerous times, the bathroom door swings open, and out comes my mum. She'd been in there the entire time, and she heard everything. At first, I think I'm in trouble for my language, but, to my surprise, my mum didn't say a word to me. Instead, she goes off at EM like I've never seen her go off before. She did have a conversation with me about my language later that night. EM is pretty much silent through this whole ordeal. From the second my mum starts yelling at her, she buries her head in a book in the corner of the room and doesn't look away for a solid minute or two. Then, Mike, who, understandably, didn't like seeing his mum getting yelled at, suddenly turns to my mum and shoves her. He doesn't say anything, he doesn't try to calm the situation, or even just offend his mother with words. He shoves my mum a good few metres across the room. For your information, my mum is an amputee, she only has one arm. Obviously, I would have reacted negatively if she had two and he shoved her, but I think it definitely added to my reaction. EM, upon seeing this, says during the stunned silence, "Thank you, Michael." To be honest, at this point I was running on pure rage, so I walk right up to Mike and punch him between the eyes as hard as I can, then listen to EM wail as I storm out the room. Mum yells at me as I leave, but when she finds me by the side of the pool 10 minutes later, and tells me off for what I've done, she has a guilty grin on her face. The worst thing about this was we still had to share a room for another week. There was obviously no way of reconciling that incident, but EM did make Mike apologise to my mother in return for me apologising to both EM and Mike. Funnily enough, EM didn't apologise to anyone. Then, EM went as far as to suggest that Mike should get a free shot at me because I'd punched him. So I suggest I get a free shot at EM because Mike had shoved my mum, and another argument broke out. Needless to say, we've never spoken to EM or Mike again, not even while we shared the room, not on the plane home, not when we collected our luggage. We even got separate taxis back to the street we all lived on. My mum and I did have a great time with the other family though. Oh my word, what an epic. Ah, thank you so much for writing all that. That must have taken ages to write, but it's such a good story. And so British. Yeah, I know he shoved your mum in the end, which is a bad thing, but you've got to feel sorry for that Mike. What's going to happen in his later life? He's going to have no independence, not know how to interact with people his own age, and he's going to just become socially awkward. Oh dear, dear. But praise to you, man, because the whole time you was trying to encourage him. You wasn't leaving him out of stuff. You was actually trying to get him involved. So it's all down to his mum, and he's going to end up like, I can't even explain it. What do you think of this story? What do you think of that mother? Have you got a mother like that? Let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to hear it. And if you enjoy Reddit stories, don't forget to click that like, that subscribe button, and that notification bell. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Much love. Goodbye.